Trey Lance's low completion percentage. People just plop it down on Twitter and say, boom, it's not good enough. Jimmy Garoppolo is better. Let's talk about why Trey Lance's completion percentage is low. I mean, obviously, we've seen Jimmy. He throws a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage. A lot. That's why his completion percentage is. He's not a particularly accurate quarterback. He throws a nice screen pass. He throws a nice swing pass. I'll give him credit for that. I mean, that's what he does. Trey Lance less so. So what I think you saw last year is while Jimmy completed 68% of his passes and Trey completed 57%, their yards per attempt was the same. Okay? Completion percentage doesn't really matter. Yards per attempt is more important. Completion percentage is measuring accuracy of the throw, but also openness of the receiver and his ability to catch it. 3 things, okay? And so I wanted to isolate some variables because it seems to me that some of the receivers he's throwing to are getting open more than others. So I just went through my notes. I keep good notes. And I got targets and completions to 6 different receivers, okay? This is important. So let's start with Ayuk, okay? Ayuk is leading the team in targets, 37 by far, 10 more than anyone else. Having what Kyle Shanahan said is a MVP type camp. 22 at 37, 59%. And that's a guy who's kicking ass. And it's not because, Trey's missing left and right. It's like, man, these corners are really good. So Ayuk is working his ass off just to barely crack 60%, almost approach 60%. Debo, 9 of 17, 52%. He's not quite in regular season form yet. We'll talk about him in a minute. Jennings, 8 of 16. Not great. Ray, 5 of 12. Then it gets good. Elijah Mitchell, 7 of 11. Kyle Juszczyk, 7 of 10. George Kittle, 19 of 27, 70%. So here's what I'm saying. If Lance can hit Kittle 70% of the time, maybe that means that Lance isn't particularly inaccurate. If he were inaccurate, he wouldn't be hitting anyone 70% of the time. And these throws to Kittle aren't in the flat. They're at all 3 levels of the field. So to me, what I'm seeing is, wide receivers getting their asses kicked in camp. Wide receivers who are getting clamped up, except for Ayuk, who's winning sort of late in the down. That's not on the quarterback. And that's why I feel like if Jimmy Garoppolo in these practices, his completion percentage, it might be a little bit higher because of his sheer commitment to check the ball down. That's it.
This is what I picked up from those stats is the 3 guys that you mentioned that have a high percentage in their favor are 3 guys that are most likely catching the ball near the line of scrimmage. Like, yes, Kittle's running routes deeper at times.
Yes.
But he also is going to catch the ball near the line of scrimmage a lot more than a wide receiver would. Now, Debo can be a different story, but so far he hasn't really been a part of things. So to me, what I'm hearing you say is if Trey Lance was running the Jimmy game plan, he would be in the mid-60s himself. That's what I'm hearing you say. And what's really happening is he's throwing downfield a lot. He's taking a lot of chances, and he's throwing into tight coverage where the wide receivers just are not getting open. And not only that, we know that the drops are aplenty. I feel like I read a report every day, 2 drops today, 2 drops today, 2 drops today, every single practice. And I get drops are a part of the game, but when you are charting not real games, those drops matter. And when you've only thrown around 100 passes and you've had double-digit drops, that is significant. That's a big amount of drops. I'm more concerned about the drops than I am Trey Lance playing well this season because the drops were an issue last year as well.
I just think it's interesting that when he's targeting starting tight ends and running backs, starting tight end, starting running back, starting fullback, he's at 70% completions, as he should be. When he's targeting wide receivers, he's at like 50. And to me, it's some inaccuracy, some of the depth of target, and some of these guys being overmatched by the corners. What I'm seeing in camp is corners outplaying the wide receivers. If Debo would come around and come alive, that would really help. And the D-line outplaying the offensive line. And I'm seeing here the running backs and the tight ends outplaying the linebackers and the safeties, at least in the pass game. So it's not like, look, if Kittle was catching 50% of his targets, I'd be like, man, Lance is off. It is Lance, but not. Kittle's having a good camp. Lance is hitting them. There's a connection there. Debo is not himself. Maybe he'll get there. Ayuk is doing the best he is, but he's not elite. He's good, not great. And he has a hell of a time against Mosley and Travarius Ward. To his credit, he's beating him more than he's losing, but still 59%. Right. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and to be real with you, this is a part of the game that I feel like Shanahan has underutilized since he's been here. When they went and made the moves that they made, even in 2017, to bring in a guy like Juszczyk, I really thought that they were going to take advantage of a lot of those tight ends and those the linebackers in those matchups. It's never really fully materialized. And realistically, our tight ends and running back / fullback have an advantage against every linebacking core in the league outside of maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Like, that's something they need to figure out and utilize, make the game easier. And it's something that they could have certainly exploited against the Rams. They chose not to. And I hope that they figure it out. Get Trey some of those easy completions, because one thing I have noticed, it sounds like Trey starts out slow in practice, and he certainly has started out slow in the few games that he's played. So get him into the game.
Yeah. I feel like Niner fans are just preparing themselves for the worst. And so they hear these bad practices and they're like, Grant, don't give me context that he's going to suck. I don't care. I just want to remind you, like, he's throwing a lot of passes to JaMychal Hasty, Trey Sermon, Tyler Kroft, Malik Turner, Marcus Johnson, like guys he's not throwing to in the games. When he's in the games, he's going to be throwing to Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, Juice, Mitchell, and maybe Jennings and Ray if they get their act together. But right now, like, he has a legitimate good rapport with 3 of those dudes. 4 of them. Ayuk is good. And so what I'm trying to say is the Niners corners are really good. They're really good. Mosley's way better than he was 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Travarius Ward is really good. And Debo hasn't really stepped up yet. So, I mean, I think that kind of explains a little bit. It's not like in the past, the Niners would play off coverage. They play zone coverage, and they would just say, no big plays. Give up as many short passes as you want. Now they're like, no short passes against us. Absolutely not. And so the Niners have to throw the ball down the field, and the wide receivers aren't winning that much other than Ayuk. I don't know. Kittle is. Kittle's having a great camp. I haven't been giving him enough credit. 19 catches on 27 targets. They just have to, if they can keep Kittle healthy, Lance is going to have a really good year. Kittle's going to have a really good year. Yeah.
Yeah, Kittle's going to be a big part of this offense this year. He really is. And now they finally can take advantage of Kittle up the seam, I think, is a nightmare for defenses. Get him one-on-one with a linebacker, it's a wrap. And now they can take advantage of those things. I'm looking forward to it. But, when we talk about struggles real quick of training camp, Russell Wilson is struggling mightily. Nobody's worried about him. You've got Mac Jones struggling. How many people are worried about him? Fields. This is not an isolated incident with Trey Lance. This is a league-wide thing for the most part, outside of a few guys.
Yeah, and it's like, you're not game planning, and you're throwing to all these different players. When they had a move the ball period that won a couple of days ago where he was so good, he threw to Kittle 3 times in one drive. They don't ever do stuff like that. But in a game, if they have to win, I'm guessing they're going to do stuff like that because the Kittle-Lance connection is on point right now. So I'm just saying, I have a feeling it's going to look a lot, the offense in general is running is going to look a lot better in the regular season than it has in camp, and it will in the preseason. Because again, they're not game planning in the preseason. When they finally game plan, you're going to see like an extremely diverse run game and an extremely diverse play action package.
Well, and when they are game planning, it's in the mock 2-minute drills, right? Because they're actually putting plays together and stacking them. And look at how good he looks in those situations.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. Like if this were year 4 of Trey Lance, I'd be like, I don't know if they should re-sign him. That's a lot of money. But this is year 1, essentially. And all he has to do is prove that he was better than the previous guy and justify, or not even better, at the same level. Because if he improves, then you've already shown you can't go anywhere with Jimmy Garoppolo. So he's on, like, to me, the bar to judge Trey Lance is lower this year, but it ratchets up as time goes on. That's the way I look at it.
For sure. Absolutely. You're 100% right about that. But also we should clear something else up, because a lot of people have this, their comeback to this is, why wouldn't you hold Garoppolo to the same accountability? because we knew what Garoppolo was. We had seen that song and dance. We knew what it was. And when we saw that he was still the same guy in camp, we knew exactly what we were about to get. With Trey Lance, we have no idea. I know I'm a big Trey Lance guy. I don't know for sure if he's going to be great. I think he's going to be great, but I don't know that. If you think he's going to suck, you don't know that either. We do not know what Trey Lance is eventually going to be. So him struggling now, I'm not going to make a big deal out of the ups or the downs because I don't know what he's eventually going to be. I have no idea, and neither do you.
Again, I mean, he's completing 70% of his passes to Kittle, 70% to Juice, 65% to Mitchell, 60% to Ayuk. Once Debo comes around, it seems like he's going to be completing a high percent of his throws. You know what I'm saying? I feel like just the low. All I'm saying is that the topic was the low completion percentage in camp. I think it's a little bit of a function of Jennings and Ray and Croft and Sermon and you know what I'm saying? Once they get in the games, like the guys who are catching the ball actually are catching it efficiently from Lance. I don't think it's that big of a deal. We'll see. That's all I'm saying. I think the context shows that he's completing a high percentage of the people he needs to throw to.
Here's what we don't know. We don't know what they are trying to work on in certain situations. Today, it sounds like they were trying to throw deep right an awful lot. Like they were specifically trying to figure that out. That's not actual football. That's you practicing, which is exactly what this is. One thing I can tell you.
Hold on real quick, though. On those, it's 4 throws deep up the right sideline. He hit none of them. If that's all you say, bad job, Trey Lance, right? But of the 4 throws, 1 hit Debo Samuel in the hands. He dropped it. 1 drew a 40-yard defensive pass interference penalty. So actually, his accuracy percentage on the 4 deep throws was 50%, which is outstanding. So it's depending how you look at it. It depends on how you look at it, you know? Also, the 40-yard DPI, when does Jimmy Garoppolo ever get those? That's not part of the offense. You don't even have the opportunity to get those. The Niners are going to go from an offense that gets like 5 or 6 DP that draws 5 or 6 DPIs a year to like 10 to 12, 4. That's important. That's important. 1 a game as opposed to 1 every other game.
I don't know if you caught that chart that somebody tagged you in over the weekend. A beautiful chart of every single throw that Jimmy made last season. Now, I had the individual game charts. I didn't have a full season chart. I love that chart that was thrown together. He only threw 27 passes over 20 yards last season. Only 27, and he completed 11 of 27. Trey Lance, in the 2 games he started, threw 8 such passes, was on pace. If he had played 15 games, would have had 60 attempts to Jimmy's 27. That is the difference here.
And that's why you see, like, even though the completion percentage was off by 10%, the yards per attempt was the same. It was virtually the same. And I think that's a more important statistic because I just think it is. Completion percentage, you could goose that up by throwing backwards. Yards per attempt, again, you can't manufacture that.
Completion percentage is, first of all, it's the most overrated stat in the game. Let's be clear about that. And secondly, we don't know exactly what the installs are and what they're working on. One thing I can tell you is from the little bit of film that I've seen that has come out, I'm not going to say film, but little bit of footage that's come out, I constantly see Trey going through his progressions, which is major improvement. He's going through every progression, it seems like, every play. And I'm not seeing a lot of wobbly passes. Like, I'm seeing improvement there. And I'm seeing touch on his throws. That's 3 improvements I'm seeing from short video clips that are posted every single day.
Yeah, I agree. Let me tell you where I'd like to see him improve. And here's one thing he can control that can increase his completion percentage.
Right.
The throws behind the line of scrimmage, the throws in the flat. Like, those should be 90% completion throws. And he misses them too often. And it's often like, you know, Hasty in the flat. Now, Hasty's about 5'9", but it's like just throwing too high over a running. Like, there's a lot of easy throws Kyle can scheme up, but if he can't have confidence that you're going to hit those 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, he won't call them. And that's on you. And we saw that, like, in the end of the Houston game, he had a great game. And then Kyle called that screen down the right. And he missed it. He came back and just lit into him. I can only imagine. Like, dude, this is the NFL. You have to hit that. And, you know, we make fun of Jimmy Garoppolo a lot, but he hits that. And the Niners have really good players who can do stuff. Kittle, Juszczyk, Debo. You know, like, you got to hit that. And I think he can. I've seen him do it. I'd like him to do it at a higher, like 7 of 11 to Mitchell. That should be 10 of 11. You know what I'm saying? And he can do that. But that's a great place for him to focus. the Trey ups, the layups. You know, he's like a 3-point specialist that clanks the layup. Man, you got to work on your moves around the basket, left hand, right hand, the easy stuff.
But see, that's what I also have seen a lot of you guys posting those videos. That every single day they're working on those quick passes.
Yes.
Right before they start.
And he's improving. He hit use check.
Amazing coaching.
Yeah.
Amazing
really,
coaching.
It's more like he does a good job when he has time to like float it, but it's when he's under duress and he's off his back foot, he'll fire, hits check down high. You know, like you got to find a way to bring it down a little bit, even if you're throwing it hard. Maybe throwing to use check instead of hasty would help, because use check can extend and catch those passes.
Yeah, I mean, he also has this habit where he likes to go through his full throwing motion. Yeah. And Crocker pointed this out, and I think it was a great observation. He likes to go through the whole motion, even if it's supposed to be just like a quick flick of the wrist. Like he doesn't have that change of pace yet, right? So he's got to work on that.
Yeah, to me, like he loves throwing down the field because he loves throwing hard. When it's time to throw the swing pass in the flat, like, no, dude, you got to not throw that hard. You know, this is just a little screen. And there's those certain pitchers in baseball that throw really hard, but when they feel the ground ball, all of a sudden it's like, how do I get the ball to first base? I get a little bit of that vibe with Trey Lance. I'm not saying he's that kind of player, but that's what we're describing and what he needs to. That's one thing he can work on.
Well, and that's one thing that I've said, even when he was coming out of the draft, one area of opportunity, arm angles, right? He can make all the throws, but the arm talent is different than just throwing really hard. He has that down. He has the velocity, but arm angles is something Zach Wilson is really, really good at, right? And that's an area of opportunity for Trey. It really is.